Imagine you're planning a road trip. Do you take the same route you've always taken, tweaking it just a little to save time? Or do you throw out the old map entirely and start fresh, building a new route from scratch? Believe it or not, this is exactly the kind of decision businesses face when it comes to budgeting. On one hand, there's incremental budgeting, the let's just adjust last year's plan approach. It's quick, it's easy, and it feels safe. But is it always the smartest move? On the other hand, there's zero-based budgeting, the start from zero and justify every expense method. It's more work, but it can uncover hidden inefficiencies and save you a ton of money in the long run. So, which one is better? Well, that's the million-dollar question. In this video, we're breaking down both methods in a way that's easy to understand, so you can decide which one works best for your goals. Whether you're a business owner, a manager, or just someone who wants to get better at managing money, this is the video you don't want to miss. We'll walk you through what each method is, how they work, and why they matter. Plus, we'll compare them side by side so you can see which one makes the most sense for your situation. And hey, if you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon so you never miss out on our future videos. Alright, now let's first understand incremental budgeting. Incremental budgeting is like an annual update of a well-loved recipe. You know how sometimes you tweak a recipe based on last year's family gathering feedback? Incremental budgeting works the same way. Companies take last year's budget, or their actual spending and earning figures, and use it as a baseline. They then make adjustments based on new goals or expectations, adding a little here, cutting a bit there, all based on the previous year's data. Think of it as financial deja vu. The management assumes that what happened last year in terms of revenue and costs will likely happen again. From there, they consider possible changes. For example, if your company spent $100,000 on marketing last year, you might increase that by $105,000 for the next year, assuming costs will rise slightly. This method assumes that the way things worked last year will pretty much stay the same this year. The big advantage here is that it's quick and easy. You don't have to start from scratch or justify every single expense. It's a time saver, especially for businesses that don't have the resources to dig deep into every detail. However, it's not all smooth sailing. Challenges with incremental budgeting. The biggest issue with incremental budgeting is that it carries forward last year's inefficiencies. If you overspent in one area or didn't use your resources wisely, those mistakes get baked into next year's budget. It's like copying last year's homework without checking if the answers were right. For instance, a department in your company spent $50,000 on office supplies last year, but they only needed $40,000. With incremental budgeting, you might just allocate $50,000 again, even though $40,000 would have been enough. That's $10,000 wasted, money that could have been used elsewhere. Another problem is that incremental budgeting doesn't encourage innovation or cost cutting. Since you're just tweaking last year's numbers, there's no real incentive to find better ways to do things. Managers might even spend more just to make sure their budget doesn't get cut next year. This is called budgetary slack, basically padding the budget to make life easier down the road. There is also another issue. Let's understand it from this example. Let's say you're running a small coffee shop. Last year, you spent $10,000 on coffee beans and $5,000 on pastries. With incremental budgeting, you might increase those amounts by 5% to account for inflation, so $10,500 for coffee beans and $5,250 for pastries. But what if you found a cheaper supplier for coffee beans or realized you were over-ordering pastries? Incremental budgeting doesn't push you to ask those questions. You just roll with last year's numbers, even if they're not ideal. Warren Buffett once said, "Beware of little expenses. A small leak will sink a great ship." This perfectly applies to incremental budgeting. Those small inefficiencies you carry forward year after year can add up and hurt your bottom line in the long run. Still, despite its flaws, incremental budgeting isn't all bad. It works well in stable environments where costs and revenues don't change much from year to year. For example, if you're running a government department or a nonprofit with predictable funding, this method might be a good fit. It's also useful for small businesses that don't have the time or resources to dig deep into every expense. But if you're in a fast-changing industry, or you're looking to cut costs and innovate, incremental budgeting might hold you back. That's where zero-based budgeting comes in. Zero-based budgeting. If incremental budgeting is like tweaking last year's plan, zero-based budgeting is like starting with a blank slate. Every year, you build your budget from scratch, justifying every single expense as if it were brand new. It's a more detailed and time-consuming process, but it can lead to smarter spending and better results. With zero-based budgeting, you don't assume last year's numbers are a good starting point. Instead, you start from zero and justify every expense. For example, if your marketing team wants $50,000 for a campaign, they need to explain exactly why they need that amount and how it will benefit the company. This forces everyone to think critically about where the money is going and whether it's being used effectively. This method is all about accountability. It encourages managers to find ways to cut costs and allocate resources more efficiently. It's like giving your budget a fresh start every year, which can be a game changer for businesses looking to innovate or reduce waste. The benefits of zero-based budgeting. One of the biggest advantages of zero-based budgeting is that it eliminates inefficiencies. Since you're not carrying forward last year's numbers, you're forced to question every expense. This can lead to significant cost savings and better resource allocation. For example, let's go back to the coffee shop scenario. With zero-based budgeting, you wouldn't just assume you need $10,000 for coffee beans. You'd ask questions like, are we ordering too much? Can we find a cheaper supplier? Are there ways to reduce waste? This kind of thinking can help you save money and run your business more effectively. Another benefit is that zero-based budgeting encourages innovation. Since you're not tied to last year's numbers, you're free to explore new ideas and approaches. This can lead to creative solutions and better outcomes. Let's say you're running a tech startup. Last year, you spent $20,000 on software subscriptions. With zero-based budgeting, you wouldn't just renew those subscriptions automatically. You'd ask, do we still need all these tools? Are there cheaper alternatives? Can we negotiate better deals? This kind of scrutiny can help you cut unnecessary costs and invest in areas that really matter. Peter Drucker, the father of modern management, once said, "What gets measured gets managed." Zero-based budgeting is all about measuring and managing every expense, which can lead to better decision-making and stronger financial performance. So the question is, when should you use zero-based budgeting? Zero-based budgeting is ideal for businesses that need to cut costs or operate in fast-changing industries. It's also a great fit for companies looking to innovate or improve efficiency. However, it's not without its challenges. This method requires more time and effort, so it might not be practical for small businesses or organizations with limited resources. So, what's the key difference between these two methods? Think of it like this. Incremental budgeting is like driving a car on autopilot. You're following the same route with a few adjustments. Zero-based budgeting, on the other hand, is like mapping out a brand new route every single time. Both will get you to your destination, but the way you get there is completely different. Let's take a look at the key differences. The biggest difference between these two methods is where they begin. Incremental budgeting takes last year's budget or actual performance as its starting point. You tweak it slightly to account for changes like inflation or growth. For example, if your sales team spent $50,000 on travel last year, you might increase that to $52,500 this year, assuming costs will go up a bit. Zero-based budgeting, however, starts from zero. You don't assume anything from last year's budget is still valid. Instead, you justify every expense from the ground up. So, if your sales team wants $50,000 for travel this year, they need to explain why they need that amount and how it will benefit the company. It's a fresh start every single time. Another key difference is how these methods handle changes in the market or business environment. Incremental budgeting is less responsive to change because it's based on last year's numbers. If something major happens, like a sudden shift in customer demand or a new competitor entering the market, it can take a while for the budget to catch up. Zero-based budgeting, on the other hand, is much more flexible. Since you're building the budget from scratch every year, you can easily incorporate new information or changes in the market. This makes it a better choice for businesses in fast-changing industries. Let's say you run a retail store, and a new trend suddenly makes one of your products a bestseller. With zero-based budgeting, you can quickly allocate more resources to stock up on that product. With incremental budgeting, you might be stuck with last year's numbers and miss out on the opportunity. Next glaring difference is in time and cost. Let's be honest, incremental budgeting is much faster and cheaper. You're not starting from scratch, so you don't need to spend as much time or money preparing the budget. This makes it a good option for small businesses or organizations with limited resources. Zero-based budgeting, however, is more time-consuming and costly. You need to analyze every expense, justify every dollar, and make sure everything aligns with your goals. It's a lot of work, but it can lead to significant cost savings and better decision-making in the long run. Think of it like cleaning your house. Incremental budgeting is like doing a quick tidy-up. It's fast and easy, but you might miss some dust in the corners. Zero-based budgeting is like a deep clean. It takes more time and effort, but your house will be spotless when you're done. Next is about innovation and efficiency. Here's where zero-based budgeting really shines. Because it forces you to justify every expense, it encourages innovation and efficiency. Managers have to think critically about how they're using resources and find ways to cut costs or improve processes. Incremental budgeting, on the other hand, can lead to complacency. Since you're just tweaking last year's numbers, there's no real incentive to innovate or find better ways to do things. This can result in wasted resources and missed opportunities. Imagine you're running a marketing team. With incremental budgeting, you might just allocate the same amount for ads as last year, even if there's a new platform that could give you better results. With zero-based budgeting, you'd evaluate all your options and might decide to shift your budget to the new platform. As Peter Drucker once said, efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the right things. Zero-based budgeting pushes you to focus on effectiveness, making sure every dollar is spent on the right things. Incremental budgeting, while efficient, might not always lead to the most effective outcomes. Which one should you choose? So, which method is better? Well, it depends on your situation. Incremental budgeting is quick, easy, and works well in stable environments. Zero-based budgeting is more time-consuming, but can lead to significant cost savings and better decision-making in dynamic industries. The key is to understand your goals and choose the method that aligns with them. If you're looking to cut costs, drive innovation, or adapt to a fast-changing market, zero-based budgeting might be the way to go. If you're in a stable environment and just need a simple, straightforward approach, incremental budgeting could be the better choice. And that's ends up today's video. We've covered the key differences, the pros and cons, and how to choose the right method for your needs. Whether you're running a business, managing a team, or just trying to get a handle on your personal finances, understanding these budgeting methods can make a huge difference. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit from it. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon so you never miss out on our future videos. We're here to make complex topics simple and actionable, so stay tuned for more. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.